Now let's imagine, for example, that we have a number of other game objects. So let's just put in another cube and just kind of move this out here, and then let's duplicate this one and put this up here, and we want another one, so Control and D to duplicate, and maybe we want another one over here. And let's imagine that these are kind of waypoints. So this particular cube can move in almost like a box, if you like, or a square pattern around these waypoints. Okay, but we need to call that by script. What we could do, we could go into the script and we could create some more variables. So let's say we want these to be public so that they're available in the inspector. They're of type, we can either call them game objects or transform. Either way is perfectly fine. Okay, I'll call them game objects, and I'll call this waypoint 1, waypoint 2, waypoint 3, and waypoint 4, let's say. Okay, and so now if I save this and we take a look at our inspector, okay, we've now obviously got our waypoints, and we can just drag those cubes into the waypoints. All right, not a problem. And we can obviously talk to that in script. But what if, for example, our team suddenly decides, well, I want more than 4 waypoints? Well, they're going to have to go back into the script, and they're going to have to add to this. So they're going to have to manipulate the script in some way. They're going to have to give it new IDs, so new names for each variable, and then obviously write that into the actual script itself. Alright, so there's a much better way to do this by using arrays or lists. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. So let's say that we get rid of this public game object, just erase that, and instead we use public, this time game object, but as an array that we call waypoints. So now if I save that, now suddenly we got this little drop down waypoints, and we can define the size of this. Okay, so at the moment if I lock my inspector and I take, for example, my cubes and I add to this, now suddenly I've got all 4 waypoints or all 4 cubes, just one name to call it, and obviously we just increase the ID there, the index number. And they can continue to add to this, so I can make 5, 6, 7, etc. They can add as many as they like. However, if somebody wants to manipulate this, let's say in code, and they want to add more waypoints dynamically, be aware that an array has a fixed length, alright, or a fixed number. That if you try and write to an array, you try to expand it, what you're going to need to do is declare a new array, and then that's going to wipe out all pre-existing data. So what we could do is change our game object to a list. Okay, so public of type list, and it's going to need to know the types that are going to go in there, game object. Let's once again call it waypoints. In fact, actually I'll keep that all one word, so otherwise it will say way and then points, and then equals a new list of type game objects. Works pretty much in the same way. Okay, so when this happens, we've once again got our waypoints. We've got it's the same number, all right, but now it's a list. Okay, and in fact, actually, that's saying array, isn't it? So let's give this a different name. Let's call it waypoints 2, just so that it automatically updates in the inspector. There we go. Waypoints 2 looks very much like an array, but now we know that we're using a list. Okay, so once again, we can just take, for example, our cubes, drag them in, and it will automatically get assigned. Okay, let me go to cube. And obviously I can then just keep adding to that, but I can also dynamically expand a list in script without overwriting any previous data. So that's one of the benefits of lists. We can also close that down as well. So it's a great way of saving space in your inspector, that ability to open and close a list or array.